Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are back for another episode of the Buckeye Roast. It's your boy Ron James here with my guy QP Ski. Q, how you doing?
But it's Friday. We're here, man. I'm tired, but we're here. It's been a good week, man. We got a lot of good news coming from the Buckeye side. Some positive stuff coming from yesterday. But let me go ahead and give the first shout out. Isaiah was in here first, so shout out to him for being first on in the chat. But I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm proud of you. That name used to kick your ass in the chat. You used to never be able to say that. What's that say? It says Isaiah Q. So glad to see that you got that. Your camera's looking crisp today. So yeah,
Right.
man. Lots of good things about the Buckeyes, man. We got people falling in here already. Lots to talk about. Ryan Day spoke to the media after two close practices. They let the media into practice, so they got all kinds of information from practice yesterday. Stephen Means of Cleveland.com charted all of the quarterbacks' passes. So let's just get right into the numbers from yesterday. The media was inside practice yesterday, and we got complete stats from the quarterbacks. We had Will Howard, 9 of 19, a touchdown to Jelani Thurman, an interception to Davison Igbinosin, one sack plus a TD on a run keeper. Devin Brown, 11 of 20, TD to Jelani Thurman, and four sacks. Had a deep ball to Ballard that got down to the one but couldn't finish with a TD. Keenhold, 7 of 12, TD to David Adolph, one sack. Thought it was the best day of his fall camp so far. Sayin, 3 of 7, had a deep ball to Bryson Rogers and a TD to Rogers on the same drive. Aaron Nolan, 3 of 4. Q, I toss it to you. What are your takeaways from those initial stats?
To be honest, they look pretty solid. It's really down the line. I look at it even going. I heard Aaron Nolan even had his best day yesterday. But if we look at the top two, it sounds like Will Howard had a pretty decent day. I mean, that's if you project those out to a game, that's not bad stats. Looks like he's making plays. Looks like he sounded a little more consistent as we go along. I mean, Devin Brown again. His weapon has been the deep ball. He had the touchdown, 11 of 20. It's pretty good stats looking there. The four sacks is a little, sorry, four sacks is a little much. I would hope he navigate the pocket a little bit better. But again, man, we talked about it earlier in the week, that deep ball of really like opening up the offense and getting there. I feel like that's something that we're really going to have later in the season, and who's ever starting is going to have to develop that. But even Lincoln Kineholes, man, not bad stats. So I'm thinking Chip Kelly's really come in and he's put some groundwork in here. I mean, I wouldn't look at anybody's day. I mean, maybe saying 3 of 7, but we know he just got here. I don't look at anybody's day and say, hey, the quarterback's had a bad day. More so, I'm looking for clarification on Ryan Day of what he really wants to see here. It sounded like he had good stuff to say about Will Howard. He's got command of the offense, but I would love to know, what does Howard need to do to separate? And also, too, no one will ask this, but what does Devin Brown need to do to separate and take the spot? I mean, that's just a question that has not been asked, and I know presumptively Will Howard's going to be the starter. We know that. I don't buy the hype into this battle. I don't think you or anybody else is really buying the hype into this battle. But that would be a question if you're a journalist. That would be nice to ask. That way, we at least know it can say, okay, he did these things or he didn't. But I think the quarterbacks have looked good, especially charting these stats.
Yeah, man, you kind of jumped ahead in the show notes a couple times there. You touched on the offensive line and it being a little bit concerning that Devin having four sacks. We also want to note that Ryan Day did discuss that there's a virus going around in the offensive line room. So a lot of guys are in and out of practice. They're shuffling lineups. He was asked about it actually in his press conference, and he said today was the first day that they really felt that it impacted them. So it was a little they saw a little bit more pressure than they were used to. But also, you could see the distribution of reps there. I feel like a lot of the media members at open practices wanted to jump ahead and anoint Julian Sayin, the backup quarterback. And then, as we see, as soon as they get into more close practices and continue moving on in fall camp, you see that rotation tighten up, and you see Devin Brown and Will Howard getting the majority of the reps. And Ryan Day talked about it in his interview. You could see the progress that Will Howard has made. Everybody that's been at open practices says that it's been apparent. So it's good to hear that that Will Howard is getting comfortable here. It's good to see that Devin Brown is still competing. It seems like it's an open competition, but we'll get to it later in the show. I don't know how much longer that competition will go on. Um, I mean, I guess we can get right into it. All indications seem to point that Will is the starter. Brian Day mentioned in his press conference that Will is starting to separate. You see Devin Brown asserting himself as quarterback too. I had to discuss a little back and forth with someone in the comments here on the YouTube the other day regarding this situation, and they're like, "What do you mean Julian doesn't need meaningful reps?" I'm like, historically, Ryan Day hasn't played any of his freshman quarterbacks meaningful reps unless it came down to injury. And we have a healthy quarterback, and Ryan Day has shown every indication that when the bullets fly, if something happens to Will Howard, Devin Brown is going to be the next guy in, and I don't think that's an issue for Julian's development. We've seen plenty of guys turn out fine at Ohio State that didn't get a chance to play in their freshman season. But I do think if Ohio State's making a national championship run, I think Devin Brown is the guy that they're going to want to have healthy in the event that anything happens and they need to go to another quarterback. But Ryan Day did say they are tightening that rotation and distribution of snaps, and Will and Devin will predominantly see the majority of the snaps here in the rest of fall camp. Thoughts there?
I mean, I believe both things can be true. I mean, definitely, Devin Brown did not get a lot of reps last season. I made the market, and everybody talked about, oh, we had a quarterback battle. Kyle McCord threw more passes in every game except one than Devin Brown threw all season last year. So he does not have a lot of game reps or at least passes. I mean, maybe he was a handoff champion as we've had a lot of those, but passes to his name. So I agree. He needs to come in. He needs to throw the ball, and that's to get the feel of the offense. And it sounds like, I know Ryan Day has talked about this in recruiting, and we probably have wondered for a while, but he says, what do I look at quarterbacks? I look for a special trait. But we're quickly starting to find out what Devin Brown's special trait is. It's the deep ball. It's his arm strength and ability to open up this offense. But again, that needs development. And we talked about Will Howard and his efficiency in the intermediate game. I feel like that's the part of your game where game experience and reps really start to come in, and that really helps that part of your game, because it's not the easy pass. It's not just throw it up to Jeremiah Smith. This is timing. This is expectation of the defense and things like that. So I'm with you. Devin Brown definitely need those reps, but if you look down the line, Lincoln, if he's gonna have any time to his play here, which we don't think he will, but he needs reps. And I would say that for Julian the Air too. I mean, they're not going to get as many, but they need to distribute it somewhere down the line just to get a few here, a few there. So I would hope everybody gets some reps, but I'm with you. Devin Brown needs a lion's share as the backup or starter, whichever one he becomes.
Coming out of spring, there was a lot of talk about how loaded this quarterback room was. How are you going to get reps distributed? Are you going to be able to develop everyone with that many guys in the quarterback room, scholarship quarterbacks? I know in years past, Ryan Day talked about wanting to have 4 scholarship quarterbacks, and that's something that we weren't able to achieve many years. And now we're overboard with it and have 5 scholarship quarterbacks. How do you think that distribution of reps and rotation has played out thus far since all 5 arrived on campus?
I mean, I think it sounds like they do a good job in spring ball and summer and fall. I think this season is where you start to really not get that. And the privilege of playing at Ohio State is we have what, 5 games a year that we might have a chance of losing, maybe 4 to 5. We usually will sleepwalk and walk into a Maryland or something, and they may catch us in a close game in the first half. But really, you're looking at 7 games which you are either blowing out or have dominant commands of. And this is down the line, just not at quarterbacks. Of those are the times where you need to distribute those reps out. And like you said, Devin Brown needs them, but these other guys need them too. So I think that is where maybe Chip Kelly can come in, and maybe a little better game management of getting those reps out, just so guys aren't, guys are ready to leave because they're like, man, I'm getting no reps, and may not be the starter next year. That's 2 years without any sort of game time. So I think that's the time where they need to get a little better. But I think during camp and spring ball, they've done a good job.
Yeah, man, I think Ryan's done a great job of managing this room over the course of the spring and the fall. I mean, you heard the quarterback interviews the other day. It seems like they have a pretty close-knit room. Every person seems to be head down and focused on their own development, while still also understanding the goal of this team is to win a national championship, and it finds ways to get better while also playing your role in this national championship run. It seems like Will Howard accepted the challenges of, getting his body ready for the season, getting his mechanics right to get more zip on his ball, sticking around in Columbus to understand the offense in the offseason. So All of these things, while you also have guys like Aaron Nolan. You see a ton of love for Aaron Nolan in the chat, and you see the social team put out a clip the other day of him throwing a beautiful ball to Emeka Ibuka. All of these guys still grinding in their own role. Aaron Nolan touched on making the most of his opportunities in a loaded room. Julian saying, a guy that people predict to be the next starter at Ohio State, but may not be the backup this year. I mean, hell, yesterday you look at the distribution of reps. Lincoln Keenhold's getting more reps than Julian Saint. Every guy doing what they need to do. Maybe Lincoln thinking that he would be further along in his progression or closer to starting, still in the middle of the pack there, fighting to be the quarterback at Ohio State and not running away and still wanting to be a part of this program. And I think that's admirable from all five of these guys that, everyone accepted the challenge of being in a loaded room. Everyone came in and competed. And now, as this quarterback room and depth chart shakes out, everybody's ready to play a good teammate and move forward and do whatever they need to do to help this team moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree on that. And let's not forget, we talk about Devin Brown being the backup. I mean, Lincoln's probably one injury away from guaranteed being the backup. So I know people want to just hop to Julian Sayin and say, well, he's next in line. He needs the reps. But as far as this season goes, I mean, that may be your backup guy. And you don't want the catastrophe of last season where he got 0 reps. And so until he played one of the best teams in the country and looked like it was his first time playing football. So I think it's important to keep in mind that he needs reps as well as we go, and his management is very important to this season if something were to happen.
When we were looking at the stats, something that jumped out to me, not quarterback related, so much so it ended up being our graphic. Jelani Thurman's name coming up twice when mentioning touchdowns. A guy that we've heard a lot of hype about, high school teammate of Aaron Nolan, borderline 5-star tight end, 6'4", 260-ish.
6'6".
6'6", 250. This guy is an absolute freak of nature. Do you think Jelani finds a way to have a role this year in this offense?
I mean, going off our discussion yesterday, he has to. I mean, at this point, Jelani Thurman is what, the most talented tight end to come in Ohio State since who? You probably would have to go. Maybe. I mean, I think he's more talented than Rucker. Maybe going back to, I think he is. I think he's more talented.
Royer?
I mean, yeah, Joe Royer.
Did you see his fro? Like, are we gonna
Joe Royer? I'm actually kind of sad Joe Royer's not still here. I'm not gonna lie.
We were big Joe Royer guys over here at Best Damn Media. Sad to see him go.
The best tight end they'd ever seen. But I mean, Jelani's maybe the last 10, 15 years, probably the most talented guy to walk in this room. It's his sophomore year. He got a little bit of burn last season, saw a couple of snaps. It's got to be time. I mean, G. Scott, Will, I can't say his last name and I don't want to butcher it, but the Ohio transfer, they cannot do what Jelani Thurman does, and this is the time to take that next step and develop those guys. So I am very happy to hear him. I know Ryan, they talked about he needs to be consistent. So Jelani, if you are listening, please, for the love of God, just be consistent.
Lock in,
block, catch the ball, do what you got to do. I need it in my veins. I need this dude to come out and play this season.
Yeah, man, and it's super interesting. You talked about Ryan Day saying that he needs to see the consistency from Jelani Thurman. It feels like in years past when we've been clamoring for certain wide receivers, it's always been about getting their body to where it needs to be, being able to block at the level that they need to be able to block at in the Big Ten. And you see a guy like Jelani Thurman that's completely physically ready, and Ryan Day's talking about mental consistency that he needs out of him. It sounds like it's go time. They're ready for you to get on the field. Are you ready to take that step and do what asked of you to be able to get on the field? And I hope he accepts that challenge from Ryan Day, because every indication seems to show physically he's ready to do it. So are they going to be able to challenge him and get him focused and have him consistent and ready to be a contributor on this team as a sophomore? Because physically, I believe he's ready.
Yeah, I believe the same thing. And this goes into development. Coach Key, you got to get this guy ready. I mean, he's different, and you think about just this offense. What were we worried about? One of the main rooms was tight end, and having a guy just do his job. It sounds like you have a guy that could not only do his job if developed, but be a difference maker. You add that to the offense with the SFE guys, the speed, the running back, a Will Howard or a Devin Brown coming in. This offense just takes a next level if you have a guy that can also be a difference maker, both blocking it in the pass game. So you're talking about one of the best offenses maybe in a while we've seen, if just you can get a Jelani Thurman to come through, because every other position is pretty much set on this offense.
I want to ask you about how much do you think we use the tight ends in this offense? We're going to see a little bit of a different offense under Chip Kelly. I know it's still Ryan Day's offense, but there's definitely going to have Chip's imprint on it. You look at the stats from last year, Cade Stover had 576 yards. So I ask you, do we see a tight end on the roster outperform Cade Stover's receiving yard numbers last year? Because it felt like every time we were playing the stats game, we're like, who's going to lead the team in receiving? We're like, should be Marv. It's going to be Cade.
Coach,
So I
what
ask you, who takes over for Cade? Do you see the tight end being a large portion of the offense like it was last year?
I would say it'd probably be a step back. I think we were all pretty shocked on how much K-Silver was targeted and how much of a weapon he was. And with the added running back, with the added wide receiver depth, and with Chip Kelly, I think he's gonna look at his offense. He's gonna say, okay, who's my best playmakers and how can I get the ball in their hands? Trey out of the backfield, we needed. I mean, Brandon Ennis has been a guy buzzing all over camp. We needed. So I just think there's a lot to really go around, but it depends on if there's a guy in this tight end room that can really command that. Jelani Thurman is a walking mismatch. If he is actually ready to play and ready to step in, Chip could look down the line and say, okay, this is maybe the fourth or fifth best weapon I have out here because he's such a physical mismatch. And then you can start talking about, I don't think it'll get the case over stats, but if Jelani Thurman comes out this year with, I don't know, 300, 400 yards, he's probably a tight end. He's probably a touchdown monster if you can get him down in the red zone, because who's jumping with him? Probably not many. Then that is a big difference in a key in his offense. And then when you start battling the Georgias of the world and the Michigans, and they're like, okay, SFE's out here. I got to guard those guys. All right, Jeremiah Smith's over there. I got Trey in the backfield. Shit, who is this guy? Like that is where the difference really comes in. So, like I said, if you can do that, that's an extra gear to this offense that I don't think anybody around the country is really going to be able to match.
I agree. A little housekeeping before we keep this thing moving. We got 100 people in here watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We do this every morning at 8 a.m., weekdays, Monday through Friday. So appreciate you guys supporting. If you're watching on Twitter, just talked about YouTube. If you're watching on Twitter, go ahead and like and retweet that video. It really gives us a push on the algorithm, and then Elon starts showing our video to more people. So if you are checking us out on Twitter, you found us in the Ohio State community, make sure you throw a retweet on that video. Make sure you give it a like. We appreciate all you guys supporting. You talked about how big of a role that Cade Stover had last year, and you think that Jelani might have less receiving yards, but still has the opportunity to contribute. With Cade being such a huge part of the offense last year, 576 yards, if those yards aren't distributed directly back to the tight end room, who do you feel like takes a step forward in this offense that you feel like gets more involved than we saw in years past? Do we see a bigger distribution of catches among wide receivers? Do we see running backs get more involved in the pass game? Do we see more quarterback runs, just runs in general? How do you think the lack of targets for tight ends, if it is reduced from last year, where do you think those touches get distributed in the offense?
Honestly, I think it goes back to zone six and letting those guys eat. And you talk about Chip Kelly. I mean, he made the remark that there's no Noah Lyles on this team, and it's a good thing he is, because he would have transferred to Alabama and went crazy if he was. But there's plenty of guys as wide receiver room with speed to burn. I mean, you talk about a Mylan Graham. There's some buzz coming out with him. Jaden Ballard, we've talked about running 24 miles an hour, which even when I looked at the freaks list, there was no one on the freaks list clocking in at 24. Now that is in game, and that's a different
That's a
situation.
crazy name, bro. Like, could you imagine like someone casually walking past that hears someone listening to this podcast and they're like, what is bro listening to over there talking about the freaks list at 8 a.m.?
There's multiple freaks lists, I'm sure, but I'm talking about the Bruce Feldman one. but but yeah, no one on that list that I saw clocked in at 24 miles an hour. So that's just another opportunity to get a guy somewhat in space that can move. So I think zone six is going to eat off of this. And I think this will be the year where we're looking at them and they're like, okay, this is 5-6 deep. Finally. I think we'll see that.
Yeah, man, you'd love to see it. We've been talking about the rotation in the wide receiver room. It's been completely loaded for years, but it seems like last year it became the Marv show, especially with the injuries that we've seen in years past. First JSN, then Emeka Ibuka. I'd love to see a healthy zone six that we're able to see the ball get distributed throughout receivers 1 through 4, 5. I didn't even have this in the show notes. Where are you at on the wide receiver rotation? We keep talking about how deep we want to see the rotation and we want to see guys get involved. What do you feel would be acceptable as far as a rotation? Do you want to see more than 4 get out there? Do you think a guy like Jaden Ballard is someone that should be getting on the field and pushing 4 minutes after Brandon Ennis?
I think you got to look at these guys and say, what do they do best? I mean, you look at that list. Bryson Rogers seems like the deep ball every practice. Bryson Rogers is going and catching the ball from Devin Brown or somebody, and it seems like he's going 80. I mean, Jaden Ballard runs 24 miles an hour. Mylan Graham is a guy who I don't believe there's another guy on this roster that really can move in short space like he can. He's dynamic. I mean, I think you almost have to push at least 5 bare minimum, but I would say that 6th and 7th guy in special situations, like other coaches have used across the country, can be a weapon here. And I know we won't get the imprint of Chip until we actually see the game in game one, game 2, game 3, and then we'll get a feel for him. But this has been Chip's specialty his whole time at Oregon. It's been, hey, I got these athletes. They don't even have to be great football players, because how many players from Oregon went to go be great players in the NFL? Not many. But in college, they were absolute monsters, and they were guys that'd be like, "Ooh, how are we going to
Hey,
cover all?"
hey, hey, back up. Don't disrespect Steelers legend Dennis Dixon, okay?
I actually love watching Dennis Dixon ball. I don't know how much time I see him on the Ravens on the practice squad for a good amount of times. I don't know how much he really balled in the NFL. I think he
He
had a
didn't.
couple good games, but hey, in college he was a monster. So this is what Chip specializes in, and I think this is the perfect program for him. We have a lot of athletes out there, and I really want to see the imprint of Chip on his offense, because I think he will finally be the guy. Be like, nah, if he's running 24 hours, he ain't doing it on the bench. Get on the field and go do something.
I hear that, man. I hear that. Ryan Day talked when we talked about the quarterbacks. We mentioned that Devin Brown taking uh, more sacks than you'd like to see. Ryan Day did touch on that as far as the offensive line dealing with a virus. I know they have a lot of guys out. I want to give a shout out to Chase Brown. The media was in practice yesterday, and he had a lot of great notes that I want to run past you. He said the D-line looked dominant. You see seeing young guys make plays. Jason Moore batting down passes, blew up several plays yesterday. Tywone Malone had a sack. That was a name that you had forgot about
I forgot about.
recently, but that's still a guy that is in the Ohio State pipeline. A guy that Ole Miss fans thought had lots of potential, and just said he had to make football the main thing and give up the baseball. And you see he's committed to his development, let the baseball thing go. And it's great to hear that he's making plays out here. And then Cam's guy, Hero Canoe, blew up a 2-point conversion yesterday and ended up forcing a sack on the edge from the pressure in the middle. And we know how much Cam likes to harp on how important pressure up the middle is, because then it allows the quarterback to get out of the pocket and get closer to the edges and makes it easier for them to get a sack. And then you love to hear young guys flashing like Edric Houston. They said that he was making plays all over the place yesterday. So thoughts from the Buckeyes seem to like be falling right back into every annual tradition when they're either at spring or fall camp. You hear about the offensive line doing good one day, and then the next day, one person gone, two-person gone. You're dealing with depth issues, and they're having trouble even getting through twos because they don't have the depth and there's so many missing pieces. What is your takeaway from missing offensive linemen and defensive linemen flashing in their absence?
Yeah, I'll start on offensive line of the ball. This is just why it's so important to recruit and develop. We got to get more bodies in there, but for the guys we have, it sounds like that first group is pretty solid, which is the most important thing. Let's keep that in mind. But obviously, when you start dealing with the second team, I mean, look at the names you just read off. I mean, these if the freaks list went to 200, you might see some more of these names on there, because we'll keep those.
Bro, I'm gonna have to fucking get us a sounder to start playing, bro, because we might have to start playing Kendrick every time you bring up the freaks list. Freaky ass nigga 69. God,
All right,
that's
time,
your
y'all.
favorite list to talk about, bro.
Last
Freaky
time,
ass
y'all.
bro. It's 6:20 in the morning, and all Q want to talk about is freaks, bro. I don't know what they got in the water down there in Arizona, but you wake up on some freak shit every morning, and I'm just trying to talk Ohio State football, and all this boy want to talk about is freaks.
My favorite time of year, man. When the list come out, I was waiting. But nah, man. No, this defensive line is absolutely crazy. And Larry Johnson is the one guy that I have caught. I know he rode JT and Jack way too much in the Notre Dame game. It didn't sub
Oh, did he?
anybody. But he's been the one guy who's rotated his players. So with all these guys on the defensive line, I'm expecting absolute havoc. I'm expecting all these guys we're talking about to play, and I'm expecting this defensive line to really be dominant. And this is the time where we have the depth, we have the talent. I want to see a UGA defensive line. We talk about those guys and the way they wreak havoc every year. You can't run on them. Their pass rush is crazy. Like, you recruited all these guys. You're saying they develop. You're saying Jason Moore. Oh, he's the perfect 3-tech. Well, the perfect 3-tech better play on this defense. That's all I know. If you're gonna give them that kind of hype, they better be playing Tywone Malone. I'm not going to use the freaks list, but hey, he's a dominant athlete, good young man. He needs to play. So I'm looking for dominance from this defensive line.
Yeah, man, it's like you're cheating ahead in the notes. My next question was going to be, how important is this depth going to be for this team? We talk about the longer season. If Ohio State has national championship aspirations, they're going to play the longest season that they have in years. How important is it going to be to find the right rotation of guys? It felt like a couple years ago we're screaming Wise Cajun in the fourth quarter, and then the following year it's like, can these guys get a break? Do you think we're able to find a healthy balance this year? Because I feel like this is the first year that the Buckeyes, almost across the board, not just limited to the defensive line, that like they have the depth to rotate. It's not a question of can this guy behind them play. We've seen a lot of these guys flash. We've heard great things about a lot of them in practice. It seems like the Buckeyes are in the perfect position this year to utilize their depth. And then we've talked about the misses and the guys that don't have experience yet from the 2022 class. These are going to be the leaders of your team next year. It feels like almost like the 18 class all over again. Like Taraja Mitchell and those guys sat for years and years and years. And then when it was their time to get on the field, no one had seen them. And it was like, not exactly it. So I feel like with all the talent and depth on this team, and especially with a lot of the guys that still haven't had an opportunity to play, it's imperative to get these guys reps, because you have a whole class of guys, as we noted yesterday in 22, that haven't seen the field much, and they're going to be the leaders of your team next year. So while there is a national championship running in ahead of us, I think getting these guys reps is going to be imperative for the future of this team and program.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think it's a step down. I mean, we talk about defense and Kenyatta Jackson is a crazy talent. I mean, you could look at him and say, hey, in a year, this dude might be first, second round type player. Like he is a prospect. And Caden Curry, we've heard about him for a long time. So we already know the defense ends can play. You can throw Edric Houston in there somewhere, get him reps as he should. And then his defensive line, we haven't really seen these guys yet, but I think we've heard so much of a hype about Jason Moore, so much of a hype about Tywone Malone that they almost have to play at this point, or again, is it Lion Johnson? Like, like it's like, well, like both things cannot be true. These guys cannot be this good, and Caden McDonald as well. These guys cannot be this good, and they never play. I love Ty Leak, I love Ty Hamilton. They ain't that damn good where they never come off the field. Maybe Ty Leak, but still, he's 320. He's gonna get tired. So these guys have to play at this point, or you're lying to us for another season.
I'm laughing at the chat, man. They are on Gmo's head. He's in here asking who's the queen. I think he's jealous. Gmo thinks he's a queen too, chat. Don't be too mean to him. But shout out to Posh. That's who they're talking about, Gmo. They're talking about Posh. I want to jump back in to the notes. I mean, you talked about Lion Johnson. I don't know if some people know who that is. I think that's a nickname for Larry Johnson, but I want to talk about our guy Lion Day. I thought he was going to come out here and have lies galore for us, but it's too early in the season for him to be in regular season form. Kept it pretty cordial in the press conference yesterday. We talked about the O-line virus that's going around, so they're dealing with that and trying to figure out how to distribute reps and get guys playing opportunities. It was cool to see that, like, the Armstrong twins and things like that, getting reps in practice yesterday. So, I mean, I guess there is a silver lining in the absence of some of our more veteran guys. Spoke on Will's development again, the mechanics and the grasp of the offense. It seems like he really put in the work in the offseason. And then talked about his poise in the pocket, because someone asked, what is it about Will Howard that enticed you and made you go after him in the transfer portal? And he talked about his poise in the pocket, not necessarily always scrambling, but understanding pressure and being able to feel pressure. And that speaks to something that we heard from our friends over at Menace to Sports. Zach did a film breakdown of Kyle McCord and how our offensive line takes a lot of blame for his inability to feel pressure and see the field. And I just want to roll that clip here for the audience.
One breakdown is right here at center, where we got this Alabama 3-year starter. This will be his 3rd year starting or whatever it is. This is a good pass pro. 4-man rush. You got Chop Robinson against Josh Fryer, one-on-one again, right? Josh Simmons, Adisa Isaac. Both do a decent job. Josh Fryer doesn't look great, just looks high and stiff. But look at the left tackle, man. That is a patient, athletic set. Done. Just leakage at center. That's a great pass pro, other than one guy.
He also had another clip where he was sliding into pressure. Instead of stepping up in the pocket, Zach was able to show that there's scenarios where Kyle has a clean pocket, and instead of stepping up, he's sliding into pressure. You saw issues there at center, but for the most part, the tackles are holding up, which is good to see against 2 NFL caliber defensive ends. And then you saw Carson Hinsman struggle there at center, but all our reports indicate that's not our center anymore. Q, your thoughts about Will's poise and what he adds to this offense replacing Kyle?
Yeah, so actually, if you saw it the other day, and we talked about it in our own chat, we were talking about Zach took it to compare all the transfer quarterbacks. And actually, funny enough, that Kansas State's pass pro had graded out number 1 among the transfer quarterbacks. And he alluded to a lot of that was Will's mobility in the pocket. So the offensive line obviously did at least a decent job, but Will's mobility was able to get them that high of a grade of not really taking sacks. So that just tells you, and Ryan Day alluded to it. Will Howard has definite mobility, and giving these guys on the edge as an extra second to get open and things like that is going to be very important, along with teaming that Will Howard is a good immediate range passer. He doesn't have his deep ball. That's something he's working on. He needs to work on the short ball a little bit. That was the one where I was like, okay, come on, man, get together. We need to throw some screens around here. But it's intermediate passing. So you put those two things together. That's another second for Brandon Ennis to get open. It's another second for Carnell Tate to get open. It's another second for Jeremiah Smith to be streaking down the field. That poses well for the offense. And we talked about Devin Brown earlier taking the 4 sacks. That is one thing where Will Howard has the edge on him, and that may come from experience. Devin Brown may get it later, but that is something you plug into this offense, and you look at it like, dang, if we got extra seconds to get open, this offense will be dangerous.
Not even that. I feel also that Will brings an element to the run game and the RPO game, like his run reads, his ability to see the field, and less of Ryan Day even touched on having to, in years past with Justin, when he first got here, like wasn't trusting his eyes. He didn't see it. He would just take off and run, that to the point that they told him no more scrambling. 7-on-7, you can't scramble. And like he talked about how important that poise is and the ability to stand in there. And from all indications in the way that Ryan Day spoke in the press conference, it seems that he believes Will has that poise that he's looking for. So it's going to be exciting to see, to have a guy. I mean, I'm trying not to put the cart in front of the horse, but man, as a Steeler fan, you hear of about a 6'4" quarterback that's 240 pounds running around out there. My head immediately goes to Big Ben. Do I have another Big Ben at quarterback? Because my team hasn't had a quarterback in years until we got Justin Fields this year. So to know that, you know what I mean, we're getting Big Ben vibes at Ohio State. We got Justin Fields in Pittsburgh, man. It seems like it's about to be a great year of football for Ohio State and Steeler fans.
Yeah, I heard about Big Ben clocking in at 22 miles an hour.
Hey, Big Ben back in the day when he used to still hoop, before he was just like a big beer guy chilling and growing his beard, Ben used to be outside moving.
We'll have to check. We'll check the data on that one, but no, I mean it is promising, and it gives you the thing if that is the one thing from Will Howard that's probably his best trait, and the experience comes from is just knowing the mobility of the pocket, being able to feel things. And Ryan Day said that is something that quarterbacks take time, and none of these other guys really have experience yet. So he's definitely going to have the edge on that. That gives us a lot of confidence going there. And not only that is the other quarterbacks are hanging around Will Howard. So you're hoping this stuff kind of like, all right, look at my best trait and try to replicate that. Okay, look at Devin Brown's deep ball and everybody else try to replicate that. And you're hoping that influences his room, especially for guys who may not play much this year, but start to see like, okay, well, like, how do you navigate the pocket so well? Oh, I do this, this, and that. Okay, so that experience, which Ryan Day alluded to, they love experience at Ohio State. That's the number one trait. Experience, be a good football player. That comes next. So that definitely bodes well for just the quarterback room.
Bro, I thought I saw a ghost. I'm looking at the chat. I see you talking, and I see minor league films in the comments. I'm like, Q, what are you doing? How are you typing and talking at the same time? That's multitasking. Shout out to Scotty showing love in the morning. If you guys are into movies, make sure you guys subscribe to Minor League Films right there in the chat. Q talks movies over there. So if you're into that kind of thing and you want more Q than just Buckeye talk, make sure you check out Minor League Films, man. Tapping with Q and Scotty. They do a great job over there.
I'll know you even more.
But we got one more thing to hit on. Scrimmage on Saturday. It's a big day. Ryan Day talked about the guys missing at offensive line. How much do you feel like this is going to impact the evaluation of what seems to be a pretty big scrimmage coming up this weekend?
I think it's going to impact it for who's ever next man up, because if you're running with the first team, you probably be all right. If you're running with the second team, hey, pack some extra pads, wear your rib cage. What's the thing they put on the helmet? I forgot what Ryan Day called it, but put 2 of them on there. It might be a rough day. I'd say this is a big time scrimmage, and you had another note here, and I'll talk about it. The battles in camp has been good. Chris Drew talked about the juice the secondary has brought. We've heard about Igbinosa and Jeremiah Smith kind of battling. You've seen the clip the media team put up. This is big time for this team. This is big time for a lot of players' confidence. And we've talked about a lot of guys who are on the fringe. Talk about linebacker with Gabe Powers and CJ Hicks and those guys. Secondary guys, like guys all over the place. Offensive line. This is a good chance to build confidence. I think this scrimmage is very important. And I think by the end of this scrimmage, unless Devin Brown does something crazy to come back, or I don't know, Julian Sayin gains 15 pounds of muscle and becomes a college quarterback overnight, maybe some compound V laying around Columbus. Will Howard
might antler spray.
Yes, I don't know. It sounds like Will Howard might run away with it. So this is very important. I'm hoping there's more competition. I'm hoping somebody pushes it, because that lets you know the quarterback room is even deeper than we thought. But I think we're going to have a quarterback after this scrimmage, and I think it'll be all go for this team.
Yeah, man. It feels like it's almost go time. So I have to ask, does Ryan Day name a starter after the scrimmage?
I think it will come next week. It just sounds like it's Will Howard's job to take. It doesn't sound like he has to do anything crazy, which I wanted to ask, like, what does Will Howard need to do to take the job, and what does Devin Brown need to do to take the job, so we at least know. But from that, it just sounds like he has a grasp of the offense, which I would believe Devin Brown has some grasp of the offense. I mean, he was named the starter last year, so if he doesn't, he's taking a lot of steps back. But it just sounds like all indication is that Will Howard is doing everything that Ryan Day wants, and he brought him here, so sounds like he's going to be the guy. But I am optimistic that somebody else will at least prolong this a little bit, because that means we have better depth going forward.
Yeah, man. I think on Saturday, barring any crazy shenanigans from the offensive line, that Will is going to be able to win this job, and we get an announcement out of Ryan Day early next week, possibly as early as Monday. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out on. It feels like we are officially at my favorite point in the year, Q. It's almost lion season. You know my rule. I don't get out here and lie if I don't know who my quarterback is.
No.
But it's starting to feel like I know who my quarterback is. And last night, I almost watched Kansas State versus Texas. Where are you at? And are you ready for lying season? Because once it starts, we're lying about a national championship run. I feel like we don't have this type of energy since, like, we first met on Spaces. We have fucking had the enthusiasm beat out of us by Michigan 3 years in a row, Ryan Days, failures in the last 3 years. But I'm ready. It's like, here we go again. The meme from GTA. Like, I'm ready to do this again. I'm ready to be hurt. The Buckeyes come out here, win us a national championship, because I feel like Lion season's right around the corner, and I can't wait.
See, and also too, Lion season starts for y'all, and Truth season starts for me. You heard the Josh Proctor takes from last season.
Oh my God. All right, let's get a wild prediction, Q. Lion season's almost here. But before we get to Lion season, let's get to prognostication. Tell me your lies, and it can't be that Jordan Hancock's gonna get drafted, because you used that last year and it didn't happen.
He'll get drafted eventually. I will say, and I've thought about this and coming early out of camp, a guy that I might ride my season on, and I have no choice at this point because the sound is coming through my room. I can hear from Columbus. This man Arvell Reese might need to play, and he might need to start immediately with the hype they are giving. I am buying all stock in Arvell Reese. They talked about not Ryan Day, but the beat has talked about him after practice, talking about he is an absolute freak show. I get he's only a sophomore. I get he's supposed to have 2 guys ahead of him, but I am buying all the stock. That might be my guy rolling in the season. Get Arvell Reese on the field. But I will save my other lies for later. But that is a guy I am buying hefty stock in.
Man, the way y'all be disrespecting our linebackers, bro, I feel like I'm going to have to, like, start up the LLC, buy the domain, man. The Cody Simon fan club, bro. Like, where are people at, man? Hit my DMs if you're trying to sign up for the Cody Simon fan club, bro. Following a Hall of Fame Buckeye legend like Tommy Eichenberg, you got to sit behind him and learn from a Buckeye great like that. A guy that played for 3 years out there with no hands, 2 thumbs. Think about the things that he was able to learn from Tommy Eichenberg. And he's just been in the weight room with Mick, eating dumbbells for an entire year. And he's going to come out and you ask, do we have an all Big Ten linebacker? I think maybe we do. Cody Simon, actually first-round linebacker. And I think that's going to be my guy going forward, because Lion season's here, man. And I'm ready for Cody Simon to prove all the haters wrong, the people that talked about Cody Simon couldn't beat out Steel Chambers. I'm going to show you something, man. As soon as Steel Chambers got off this roster, everyone magically learned how to play football. And you're going to see guys that for some reason are 10 times better than Steel Chambers out there playing this year that weren't out there last year.
Yeah, I actually got a good nugget for you on that. Hearing but Cody Simon talk after practice, he said him and Tommy Eichenberg went through a lot of pass coverage last season. They did a lot of film study on pass coverage and how to play. And he said he took all the notes from Tommy on how to defend the pass and how to not.
Well, good thing he didn't take it from Steel, because Steel was out there getting dunked on like he was playing slam ball. So
okay, yeah, was he the only one?
I hope he learned from Tommy.
I don't know if it was much better on that side either.
Tommy don't jump, bro. That's everybody knows the rule. Don't jump. It don't look as bad.
Yeah, just
still
keep
be out
running.
there jumping.
Just run after the guy. Stay in the poster. That's what's the most important thing.
Absolutely, man. I'm super excited for this time of the year, man. It's Lion season. I've been quiet all off season. Everybody's like, where have you guys been? What do you guys got? I'm like, bro, there's nothing to talk about. Almost the entire defense coming back. We almost know who the quarterback is, man. It feels like it is go time, and it was too early to start lying, but we're here. We're outside, and it's almost Lion season. I hope we know who our quarterback is soon so I can start my Lion campaign.
Yeah, you'll know next week. Next week we'll know.
Man, that's all I have today. There are 200 people watching today. If you are watching on Twitter, please like and retweet the video. I know a lot of new people watching from inside the Buckeye community. If you go ahead and see that post in the Ohio State community, go ahead and throw a like on there, a retweet on that. It really helps us in the algorithm. If you're watching on YouTube, we really appreciate that. Love the chat, man. The chat has been absolutely booming in the mornings, man. Every day I wake up tired and I look at that chat. We see the first one. It's usually our guy Isaiah or Charles or one of our OGs. And then from there, man, all the people that have just been supporting us for 2 years, just roll in here, have the chat going. Appreciate all you guys. It's so lively to see. Sometimes I get distracted from the show. We write so much for the show and then we get lost in the chat because you guys always have it going in the morning. So we appreciate that energy in the morning. It helps us do this every day. So we appreciate the support. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed, like the video. If you know Buckeye friends out there that aren't watching it, man, we got a super cool comment from our guy Dylan Shepard at OG that has been watching the channel since we started, or Doug Shepard, I'm sorry, our guy Doug in the chat left us a comment yesterday, and man, it really meant a lot to us. Said how much he enjoys this show and wishes that we were a year around because he feels like we do a better show than some channels with more viewers, and I appreciate that. We appreciate all the support, the guys that like the content that we do out there. It's a little bit more or less traditional than some of the other outlets that you get, but man, it's super fun to do this every day. So we appreciate y'all and all the support that y'all give us. Q, let the people know where they can find you when you're not doing this show or not doing minor league sports with our guy Scotty.
Yeah, man. No, appreciate the chat. I see a lot of things. Alpha Mel, I see them in there. Appreciate. I got Doug for the comment. That means a lot. And Posh is in here, Gmo's in here, Mello's in here. All y'all, it's fun spending time with you in the mornings. I am not hard to find, man. I'm City Boy Quentin on Twitter. You DM me, hit me. I will answer. Just let me know. I'm Flying at Johnson.
Here this freak ass bull go again, bro. Talking about the DMs, like, bro, the timeline works, bro. What you trying to say to them in the DM? Talk more about the freak list. Oh, I got another freak list I want to show you, freak ass bull.
Then just slide. Man, hit me on the top. Hit me wherever it be, man. I'll see you with Quentin on Twitter. Flying at Johnson on IG, TikTok, Minor League Films with Scotty. Other than that, I will be asleep because I am hella tired right now and I got to sleep. Taking that before I go to work. Ron, where do people find you at?
Yeah, let's get out of here so Q can get his power nap in before he goes to work. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at 2Ts. That's 2_TEES. You can find us in the Discord. The link is in the bio. Of course, you can find us here weekdays at 8 a.m. Me and Q, the Buckeye Roast every morning at 8 a.m. And then Sundays with our guys Cam and Mike for Buckeye BS Sundays at 10 a.m. We appreciate all the support. Make sure if you see this on your timeline today, you throw it a retweet. If you're not following, make sure you drop a follow. We appreciate all the support. And we will be back on Monday, maybe discussing a new starter at Ohio State. Who knows? But go Bucks and OH.
Ayo.
Yeah.